have this base clip, just a little dancing clip. It's best to have it person in the entire frame the whole time so you don't get any like clipping. We're gonna add roto brush to her. That way we could just separate her from the background. And after we'll add a threshold. This is how we get this like black and white detailed effect. You could mess with the settings to get something a little different. Next, we're gonna create the scene. So here I created just a floor with a gradient ramp on it. I use the original clip as reference on how to like create the floor, so I know how she should be stepping on the floor. After that, did the same thing and created the wall. I slightly changed the colors, that way you could see more contrast and separation. After that, it's really just adding elements to the scene. Like you could just go on Pinterest or Texture Lab and just find different like textures. I added like ink splat in the background. I added these halftone patterns. You could find these on YouTube. A lot of tutorials kind of use the same texture pack. They're pretty easy to find. At this point, you should have a similar scene. It's just all 3D layers and positioned to kind of make a room and have her roto brushed onto it. Next, we have this speaker here. I just put a large speaker on the top left. I animated the scale. It would just scale it up and down on beat. You could animate this however you want. It was just something really simple. I also have kind of these branch animations, these blue lines. All you want to do for these are create pen tool shapes. All you need to do for this is create a shape with the pen tool, and then you go in content, shape, stroke, and under taper. You could mess with these settings to get kind of a more fluid shape. After I got like a shape I like, I added a trim path and just animated this. It would just flow in, and that's how you get these branches. I have this star. You can't see it right now because I pushed it all the way up front. Make sure, since these are all 3D shapes, you're constantly like changing where on the Z-axis each shape is, so it gives it more depth. So let me just enable my camera real quick. You see, we have this star shape. I made this myself. All you need to do is add a star shape, make the fill white, this stroke black, and then you could right click, go to layer style, and click stroke, and you can add another stroke on top of the shape. The next thing I did was I added puddle, like circles under her feet, or every time she steps. I just animated these circles. You see some of them are kind of off. That's because when I enable the camera, then it will kind of fix it. But let's create this from scratch. If you just create a shape layer, you could shrink it to fit it real quick. And what you're gonna look for is under stroke, you have stroke width, and under transform, you have scale and opacity. Let's press U to bring up those keyframes only. These are the main properties for the puddle effect. We could shrink this down and increase the opacity. And if we go a little forward, we could increase the scale, lower the stroke width and the opacity. And we just highlight these keyframes, easy ease them. If you have flow, you could do a simple graph like this, and you get that kind of effect with the circle. You just duplicate that same shape and put it under her feet every time she steps. After that, you should just have a scene that looks like this. Which then all that matters after is creating your camera. It's common practice and best to link your camera to null. If you press Ctrl-Alt-Shift-Y, you could bring up a null and parent the camera to the null. I was too lazy, I didn't do that. I just animated the position and all the individual rotation axes. I just created a simple camera object. Fun tip is to also animate the zoom. Animating the zoom can create dolly zooms, like artificially. For example, if I go back to my main comp in part 2. You see I actually did animate the zoom here. When I animate the zoom and the position, it will actually create an artificial dolly zoom. So like right here and right here, you kind of see it most. The position of the camera is actually slightly moving forward, but the zoom of the camera is zooming out. So that's why kind of right here, you see everything get more narrow and further because I'm creating a dolly zoom. Lastly, it's just texturing and just overlays. First, I use a lot of lens flare in this edit. I like to use optical flares. You could create a lens flare a bunch of different ways. It doesn't really matter. If I enable it, I have the light source coming from top left and it's creating a flare down the bottom right of the screen. I then, in my next solid, I created lens dirt to create that texture on the lens. This is just how I got the simple lens texture to make it feel more real. I then created a low res filter. This is just unsharp mask and signal. This is the original look. If I add unsharp mask, then you kind of get this rigid edge look to it. I add signal to create a more VHS feel and pixelate it more. Just very simple setup to create this low resolution filter. On that other part, I basically did the same thing, lens flare, lens dirt. The only difference is you could see I have an animated deep glow and tritone. Not as much movement on this scene, so I decided to add a little more spice by adding 2 tritones, a pink and red one. I then also, along with the tritone, have a deep glow animated, and that's basically the overall breakdown of this edit. It's really simple. If you know how to navigate After Effects, then this really shouldn't take you more than a couple hours. I was able to finish this in, I want to say, around 3 hours. It's very simple, very easy to do.